a very warm welcome to ET Studios. We are live coming to you from ET CIO Annual here in Goa. I'm your host Divina Lason. Now here on ET Studios, we are creating an engaging and insightful interview series that dives deep into the world of technology, trends, strategies and innovations through exclusive conversations with India's top tech leaders. On this episode, we're here to talk about unlocking data's potential through a scalable, sustainable and automated infrastructure platform. This session is powered by Adani Connects. Without any further ado, to talk about this and much more, it is my pleasure to welcome our guest today. We have joining us Rupinderjeet Singh Chandok, Lead Products and Technology Alliance, Adani Connects. Rupinder, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Abhay Jore, Design Authority, ICICI Bank. Welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. And Dhaval Pandya, Corporate CIO, Piramal Enterprises Limited. Welcome.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today on ET Studios. And we're here to talk about this huge issue of unlocking data's potential. So at the onset, I'd like to get the conversation started by laying a bit of foundation and understanding how, in your experience, Dhaval, maybe we start with you. Are you seeing that organizations are really managing and wrapping their hands around the vast amount of data that's coming through on perhaps even a minute by minute basis?
So I think there are 2 to 3 parts to this puzzle. First and foremost is taking a cognizance of all kinds of data that is getting generated by your organization or by your ecosystem. That itself is a task in itself, to be able to understand exactly what data is generated with what frequency, what is the depth of data, width of data, and then comes the part about how do you harness the potential of this data by getting it into a centralized repository of sorts. Yes. So that where you can put the data in one central repository, you can try to run some models over it, try to make some sense over it, and then comes the monetization part of it. So today organizations, having realized that data is a new oil and various other analogies being used, they try to jump to the monetization part very fast, and that's where some they try to do things before and invest into possibly initiatives or technologies which are not keeping the end goal in mind. It's just trying to run over your feet and get to the destination. So I think the biggest problem today is about, number one, identifying the right type of data. It's about the quality of data as much as it is about the quantity of data. So identifying the right type of data, putting it in the right infrastructure that will help you, for example, meet your analytical requirements or meet your data requirements, provide that data fabric that you need that runs across your organization with a long-term perspective. And finally then comes about how do you harness the potential of the data and get certain insights out of it.
Yes, thank you. Abhay, let's get you in on this. How's your organization approaching the vast amount of data that you must be managing all the time?
Yeah. So I think a good way to eat an elephant is to actually eat it slice by slice.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how you handle volume, is you separate out the architectural layers that actually do that. And the first and the most important one is there is a vast variety. I mean, it's not just volume, it's variety of data that has to come in. So therefore, the first task really is to ingest it, as close to real time as possible. Obviously, some of the stuff comes through as batch modes and get it into one place. Yeah. The second stuff is then in the second layer is to then start transforming it, storing it, and actually figuring out some relationships between the two. The third layer is to then transform it and make it ready for consumption. Yes. Yeah. And transformation typically consists of steps like data wrangling, data discovery, enriching it with a lot of metadata, operational metadata, business metadata. By metadata, I mean data about data. Where has this come from? How old is it? Is it connected to customers? Is it connected to a location? Yeah. So you do all of that, it's ready for consumption. Now comes the tricky part, which is if you're consuming it, there is a whole host of uses you can put it to. You can put it to descriptive sets, which is who did it, what happened. Yeah, it's largely based on logic, and just description of stuff. And that's like old school BI. Yeah, you talk about MIS, talk about these 132 column dot matrix, kind of stuff. Yeah, your balance sheet, your P&L statements all come like that. Descriptive, what happened. Yeah, the next stuff actually is why did it happen. If we did this, could things have been different? now you're looking at simulations, you're looking at predictions. Yeah. So the descriptive moves to predictive, and there is a order of magnitude difference in the kind of instrumentation you need to answer the second sets. Yeah. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which way of the shelf you are, there is a third and the fourth layer which has come over it. The third layer that's come is actually optimized predictions and action. Yeah. So systems have gotten autonomous. So instead of just telling you that, do this and this will happen, you'll say, can I do this for you in this priority? And if you say yes, it does it. Yeah. And the fourth one, which has just hit us over the last 4 or 5 months, is now it is able to generate new novel things, which were not even asked of it. Yeah. So from descriptive to predictive to automated to generative, there's been a step change, and each one actually operates on the same piece of data. So the first 3 layers I mentioned continue to be there. The last layer, which is how it has to be consumed, will depend on what is the problem that is being sought to be solved. Yeah. So, but yeah, to summarize, it consists of fairly sophisticated instrumentation, which is a layered kind of an architecture.
Rupinder, let's bring you in at this point. We've heard a very detailed breakdown from Abhay about the instrumentation and how the various layers when it comes to not only having the data, processing it and getting it ready for consumption works. What would you say is the role of real-time data platforms to help enterprises like this when it comes to really optimizing your service delivery? How are you utilizing the platforms?
So it's a very interesting choice of topic, right? And to pick up from where Dhaval and Mr. Abhay said, I look at data as nothing but crude, right? And like Abhay put it in very simple terms, though a very descriptive way, the crude has to be transformed into something which is usable, right? So data ultimately has to have some use at the end of the day, right? But to enable the right way of data getting transformed into something which makes more sense from a business and a functional point of view, right? That is where we form a layer and we come in, right? How we look at it is because from Mr. Dhaval and Mr. Abhay's point of view, they are more in the business and the functional area of things, but the layer which supports data storage, data processing, and making data available at any given point of time, that becomes really critical.
Yes.
We are in a real-time economy, right? We will say data, if I have data, I want the answers now, right? We are in a right now kind of an economy. So what makes sense is to make this data readily available with minimal latencies, and also to make it available in the form that businesses can consume it, right? It has to be stored in a manner where metadata is attached to it. You have to look at what kind of data, putting it into the right boxes, the right kind of storage options, and then making it available for businesses. So the way we feel and we see, even from our own data center industry point of view, real-time data makes a lot of more sense, because every process within the data center, if it is not optimized, will not result in any benefits to the consumers residing inside the data center, right? So any real-time data we consume today, we utilize it to optimize, whether it is cooling, whether it is energy management, whether it is delivering services at any given point of time. We use our own metrics, right? And we make that data readily available for our own optimization, right? So ultimately customers benefit from that.
That's really interesting. So building off of what Rupinder has just shared, the other side of real-time data platforms is how businesses can use them to really optimize the business side of things ultimately. Dhaval, your inputs on this, in your experience, how have you seen businesses really leverage the platforms?
So it is somewhere tied to what Rupinder and Abhay said, right? If you look at analytics, the way it is matured is, and I think Abhay put it in some construct, it is basically from descriptive to diagnostic to predictive to prescriptive. So basically, what has happened, why it has happened, what will happen, and how can we make it happen, right? So today, organizations are focusing on the top 2 portions, where they think that they are sorted more or less in the bottom 2. They've been doing it traditionally, happy doing that, but but that's where the magic has to happen, and they have to realize what is worth pursuing, what is not worth pursuing. That's where a lot of POCs and use case kind of an approach, or an agile fail fast move forward kind of an approach helps. And it's very important not to get emotional about it. It's very easy to get attached to something once you have spent effort over it, but then you have to realize whether it has the potential to get scaled up or not. So basically what we are trying to say today is that it is no longer an IT or a business problem, it is a business and IT or a digital problem to solve. So how can digital contribute to my top line? How can digital contribute to making my costs lesser? How can digital help me improve productivity? How can digital help me improve my bottom line? So when you look at those metrics and then try to break those metrics down as to what contribute to those matrices, and then identify as to which of those with components within those matrices can be digitally leveraged, I think that's a good approach to take, because otherwise you're looking, if you have a vast volume of data, you just can't go about finding correlations within it and then try to make sense. Then it becomes an exercise of round holes and square pegs. So that is one of the approach. So it's important that you co-own whatever you are investing into. It's very, very important. So it's not looked at as an IT project or a business project. It's looked at like a digital or a business IT initiative, where we are trying to improve the organization's way of working, or improve our top line, or looking at our bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rupinder, to Dhaval's point about really if organizations get into the complete compartmentalization and management of the data, it's a steep uphill task. How are you stepping in to really help organizations that are dealing with this massive quantums of data when it comes to storage, processing, archiving? How can you step in there?
So, Divina, the way we approach, we look at ourselves as more consultative partners to all our customers, right? Because ultimately within their digital journey, right, you need to know where they need to reach, right? If I don't know the end goal, if I look at a solution, they may never buy that solution, or they may never own that solution, right? So until we follow that consultative approach, right, and when we say if I don't do what helps my business, right, I can't eventually put myself in their shoes and look at how they will look at business, right? So if I have to come up with a service, come up with a product that has to benefit the industry at large, I need to own it within my own premises, right? The way we approach this is on two folds, right? We can't compromise scalability for speed, right? Because see, if I have a service which is available, whether it is to store data, to process data, or to make it available geolocatedly, right, in any geography, I have to ensure that my systems are up and running, my systems are delivering performance, right? And ultimately, what kind of storage options is the customer looking for, right? Yes. Ultimately, their business systems need to integrate to that kind of platform. The data needs to be real-time available for those systems. And if I talk about from an archival point of view, the different tiers of storages that we said, or different categorization of storages, it becomes really crucial, because any archival policy is to deal more with their compliance regulations, right? And it has to be kept geolocally, or maybe at a single source for a given finite amount of time. So unlike, when we say data is the new oil, unlike oil, it's not finite. Data is infinite, right? So we need to bring in that aspect of scalability. We need to bring in that aspect of availability. And whenever we look at any service for data storage, data processing, we follow this kind of an approach and work with our customers to see what's the right fitment of that particular product for their business.
Absolutely. So with scalability, sustainability and automation really being sort of at the central focus point of how data is being used and processed and therefore delivered, if you had to maybe summarize 3 top points of how enterprises can benefit from really ensuring these 3 factors, what would they be?
So for businesses, right, IT economics or cloud economics is today at the center point whenever they're considering any IT decision, right? And it's never a trade-off between you offering a lower value of your service to the customer, right? Ultimately, if I don't optimize the way I deliver my services and transfer those benefits to my customer, I will never be able to keep my business running as well, right? So the way we look at it within Adani Connects is if I have to scale a service, then it has to scale from a, let's say, storage point of view, it has to scale from a gigabyte to a petabyte, right? And I can't compromise any time on speed, on the way it is delivered, on the way it is safeguarded, right? Ultimately, security is also a prime concern. From a sustainability point of view, right, we look at sustainability on two measures, right? One is because data centers today, though they're the center point where data resides, right, but they are energy guzzlers, right? And if I don't optimize the way I consume energy, right, I will never be able to transfer those kind of benefits to my customers. So our huge focus on bringing in renewable energy as a part of our data center strategy and the way we deliver our services ultimately brings that value add to our customers. Right? And a complete ecosystem that we've built around networks, that we've built around compute, the way our data centers have been designed. Just to give you a quick example of really where the automation comes in for us, we've built our own proprietary platform which is called Edge OS, right, which is a automated tool that gets us almost 1.5 million data points, right, across almost 18 to 20 subsystems, right, in real time, which helps us, optimize the way energy is consumed within our DCs, the way, we do predictive maintenance of our equipment. Ultimately, if I don't, ensure that these are the areas of my data center that I optimize, I'll never be able to, transfer those benefits to a business. So it's a very in-depth kind of a story for us, because we look at the layers above. From a business point of view, we'll always look at the layers which are above the infrastructure, but what goes below this is translating into tremendous amount of value for customers today.
Fantastic. Abhay, so I'm sure you have some feedback, and to cap that off, I'll ask you, how are you sort of ensuring data dexterity, delivering data dexterity, keeping in mind all these points which Rupinder so rightly pointed out?
Yeah. So, what Rupinder said is, it's complex, it is not cheap. Yeah. But I think the real answer from a business point of view is, what is the problem are we wanting to solve? And if we have enough evidence and data that backs up our hunch, there is value. Now, is that value greater than the value in generating that answer? So, if the answer is yes, sure, it doesn't matter how much it costs or how complex it is actually propelling the business forward. So it will help us generate more revenue, because obviously we are figuring out new segments, we are validating our hypothesis, we are cross-selling to customers better, we are targeting customers better. And it's helping us save costs, because we are more productive, we are more optimized in our operations, and it's also helping us avoid risk. We can actually sense threats as and when they are approaching. Yeah. So that's one factor, is ultimately it has to be a value case. Yeah. Yes. The other stuff that we were talking about was real time versus batch. Now there are degrees of real time. Yeah. So there's a real time which a fighter jet has. An F-16 versus Mirage. You have only so much seconds to launch it, and it's a matter of life and death. Yeah. And then you have trading systems, your security price, changes tick by tick, and you got to just make sure you're handling, and that's coming at a velocity of, 100,000, 200,000 records per second. Your systems have to be optimized to handle it. And then there is stuff like media, where it is not milliseconds, but your frames per second, and your hertz at which the music is being played has to be optimal. So there are degrees of real time, and there's an order of magnitude of difference in costs to subject that to the appropriate amount of real time. Yeah. So I think, other than value, the other thing that most businesses have to think through is, how do you want to calibrate the costs? Yeah. Do you really want, there's a huge difference between 6 Sigma and 5 Sigma. Yeah. So do you want that kind of a quality? Then you got to pay for it. Yeah. So those are the two takeaways I have.
Thank you. Eva?
Yeah, so I tend to agree with him. People want to do it real time because more it's a fashion statement. Simply put, because you have to see whether the use case, like you rightly mentioned, you really need real time, because it's always good to start small. I'm sure that any organization who's delving into an analytics or a data-led journey, they will start with identifying what is the most important, and then look at what is nice to have. Yeah. So unless and until, like you said, that you are in a domain which demands that. For example, manufacturing, if you talk about. Now manufacturing, if you're talking about, I think largely all use cases can do without not being real time, unless and until you are doing something on a shop floor, where you are, for example, taking decisions based on whatever is getting produced right now, whether it passes the quality test or not. Yeah. And if it is not, then it has to be shelved aside then and there. That's a use case that needs real time data. There again, people go for near real time. It is not exactly real time. because they understand that by the time it reaches from this station to this station, there is ample amount of time, and Rupinder can provide us the latency that we need, that we'll be able to manage.
Yeah, there's no fighter jet.
There's no fighter jet scenario there. So it is important that, because see, while people say that okay, we have digital from the time the COVID has struck, and digital is to the fore, and nobody is denying us budgets. Let's be honest about it. No one has an unlimited purse, and I'm pretty sure the same critical questions are being asked now. Just that possibly they're being looked at in a very different light. It is more about why to pass the project than why not to pass the project, right? So the resources are limited, and you have to be judicious about how you want to utilize it. The most important thing is that you realize what you want to gain out of it.
Yes.
Unless and until you are very clear of the end objective, you will keep groping about it, you will keep investing, reinvesting, get emotional about it, and ultimately then someday you will be feeling that okay, now if I have to retire this, it's basically a catch-22 kind of a situation for you. Do you want to share the blushes, that kind of a scenario. So it's important to understand what the end objective is. My recommendation, and I am sure that's a no-brainer, that always start small.
Yeah.
Take problems that you are confident of cracking, rather than trying to say, for example, solve for world hunger. It's not going to happen in a day's time. So it's a journey. That's the most important part to realize, and it's very good to have a partner who can pave the road for you. You have a roadmap in place with identified milestones that okay, and importantly, you are here today. This is your maturity. If you need to get here, it's not just a technical stack. Your people and process also have to mature to that level for you to be able to make the most of the technology that you're investing in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Otherwise, the operation is successful and the patient is dead.
Absolutely.
Thank you for putting that light spin on it. Well, gentlemen, this is a very vast subject, and you've really, in this brief conversation, managed to put a lot of sense to the various angles when it comes to unlocking the potential of data and how organizations can approach it. On a closing note, may I request each of you to leave our viewers with maybe one key piece of advice when it comes to their strategies that they are implementing in the organizations to unlock the potential of data.
So I would say, look at data in the backdrop of security. It's extremely important. It's a very difficult catch-up game to play once you are matured on data and then you are trying to embed security into it, and it becomes an afterthought. So security and privacy have to go hand in hand with the data journey. That would be my recommendation.
So my recommendation is, all tasks that the business entails are intellectual tasks, and data is a force multiplier. So ultimately all intelligence will reside and be extracted out of data. Yeah. So therefore, give it the attention it demands.
Fantastic.
For us, it would be that when we are in that journey with our customers as a consultative partner, it's important to know where you need to reach. With vast amount of data that they may have in their systems, it's important to prioritize, it's important to segregate, it's important to bring in those metadata aspects or attributes to data, right? And ultimately match it with business value. Not compromising on looking at cost benefits, or not compromising on whether technology makes sense. Like Dhaval rightly said, you can't reach to an end if you're not ready at the beginning. Right? So you need to start small, take it milestone by milestone, and be ready for a journey which is long term.
Yes, absolutely. As another anecdote, as Abhay said, no path will get you to a destination if you don't know where you're going.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for helping all of our viewers shed light on this very vast and important topic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our
Thank you,
pleasure.
Devina.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Wonderful.
All right, well, on that note, that's all we have for you on this episode of ET Studios. But do stay tuned for many more such exciting conversations where we give you the exclusive opportunity to gain valuable insights from the most influential leaders who are driving technological advancements in their industries. Until next time, many thanks for watching.